ดร. Lalit Johri อาจารย์ประจำด้านธุรกิจระหว่างประเทศและผู้อำนวยการโครงการการบริหารจัดการขั้นสูงและภาวะผู้นำ Saïd Business School University of Oxford สหราชอาณาจักรจะมาบรรยายในเรื่องความท้าทายทางภาวะผู้นำในโลกที่เต็มไปด้วยความยุ่งเหยิง
Now he's ready to take us to the chaotic world. Please put your hands together for Dr. Lalit Johri.
Thank you very much. This lovely lady has said such fantastic words about me. I feel under tremendous pressure that if I don't stand up to this reputation, how would I face the world after this session? So, and the fact of the matter is that the real test of any session in terms of its success at Oxford is measured how much you disagree with the speaker and how many questions do you ask. If you do not disagree with the teacher, if you do not ask the question, teacher has not done his job and he will not be allowed to eat his lunch and dinner for the day. So, you must ensure that you challenge everything that I say and that you ask me questions. I know for sure that this is not a country where you like to challenge people, but for today, I would very much want you to do that. The simple reason is that my brain only works when people challenge me, and I'm pretty mindful of the fact that there are so many Hollywood stars about 10 meters away from this place. They can perform much better than a teacher can do. So please, first of all, don't leave the theater and go to see the Hollywood stars. Stay back in the theater and have some conversations with me. Ask me some difficult questions. And let me also start by thanking our host, our organizer, the OKMD staff at every level. I mean, they have displayed such high degree of care, touch of emotions, hospitality that it really touches our heart, and it sort of reestablishes my belief that if there is a great society to be part of, this is the place. And before I took leave of absence from Oxford, I came here and spent about 10 years, and those have been some of the best moments and experiences of my life. So I'm very, very fond of this country, and I feel so happy whenever I'm here in Thailand. So let me start by focusing on the session. There are three parts to this presentation. There is the first part, which is about understanding what is this chaotic world all about. Of course, we can see the chaos outside on the roads here. We can see chaos everywhere. In my country, UK, you can see chaos in my home country, India. There is no country which is not experiencing chaotic conditions. And this is the reality of the 21st century. Fortunately, at Oxford, we deal with real problems of the world through real people, and we've tried to find real approaches. Of course, many of those solutions may not work because this is the century when experimentation is more important than finding permanent solutions. There are never ever going to be permanent solutions for the problems that the human beings face. We have created a world in which everything changes. Not only changes over a period of month, it changes on daily basis, hourly basis. In one day, you can send your political leader to 7 countries if you happen to be reading your messages online. The line guy was here yesterday. So there is so much that we hear about events and issues that it is very difficult to really pinpoint that what is the reality and what is rumor. So this is the reality of the world. So I'm going to talk about, sort of share with you a more organized perspective on what is this chaotic world all about. Why is it there? Why am I born in an era where I have to face such a chaotic world? My parents did not feel such degree of change. My grandparents had a very stable life. That would be true about everybody in this theater. My children will not face this level of chaos. They will face what we call as hyper level of chaos. Hyper means even more extreme variations in various aspects of our life. And that's the reality of the life. So I'm going to focus on the chaos, and then I'm going to talk about what is leadership from the perspective of the University of Oxford. Of course, my presentation is based on this being a keynote address. So I have focused on the program that I'm directing. It's the top flagship program of the Oxford University, where we get lots of senior executives, social leaders, and very senior government officials, ambassadors, a lot of people coming from Thailand to attend that program. But I'm equally comfortable asking and responding to questions which might be about the leadership at the younger age level. And if you have questions about how to get admission in the master's program at Oxford University, I'll be quite happy to do that also. In the third part, I'm going to share with you that what is our methodology for educating leaders. At the outset, let me tell you that we cannot use online for educating leaders of the world. Leadership is a very complex idea. Leadership is not based on rigid, well-informed, well-crafted decisions. We had the fantastic demonstration of leadership by the top management of OKMD. On 2nd, we met here at Emporium at 11 o'clock, and the verdict was that this festival will not be held. By 12 o'clock, in true characteristic style of being a leader in a chaotic world, by 12 o'clock, a decision was made that this festival will be held because so much effort has gone into it. And lo and behold, we had the inauguration of the festival yesterday and today. This is the essence of leadership. That you move, when you face adversity in the context of what you have planned, you have a plan B, may not call it a plan, but you have a contingency plan, may not call it a plan, but a belief, a resolve to achieve something that you had thought would deliver value to the society. And this is a real demonstration of the leadership. And this is what we say is going to be the nature of leadership in the 21st century. So with these few words, let me start by looking at the understanding, the notion of the chaotic world. At Oxford University, we don't give lectures. We do not stand in front of the audience and bore them with a 50-minute lecture or a 1-hour lecture or a 2-hour lecture. All our sessions are built around conversations. They're built around 2 or 3 very fundamental questions. I know for sure that it's not very easy to have a very interactive session here. However, if you have a question, just shout. I'm not able to see many faces because of the 2 lights which are also required to show the PowerPoints on the screen. So during the presentation, if you have a question or an idea, an agreement or a disagreement, just shout, "Lalit, stop. I have something to say here." And that would be the true nature of conversation style that we follow at Oxford. Okay? So the first fundamental question that I'm going to put to my audience here is that fundamental causes for the success and failure of the leaders. Some of you who were present here yesterday met 3 business leaders, the CEO from Channel 3, the king of Muay Thai, and the owner-founder of a publishing company. These are called business leaders. You have leadership of OKMD sitting here. You have political leaders. You have government officials as the leaders. What is the success rate of these leaders in the context of 21st century? If I give you some statistics from United Kingdom, where we have done a lot of research, the average lifespan of a CEO in UK is diminishing, and now it is only 3 years and 7 months. It means that most CEOs will be forced to leave their job or will be fired. This is an average figure. Some may overlast, some may underperform, less than 3 years and 7 months. But in general, good chance, high probability that a CEO will be fired after 3 years and 7 months, either for non-performance or for whatever reason. And this span of life of a CEO is diminishing. And this is one indication of the complexity that a CEO faces today. If you are an owner CEO, it's a different thing. But even owner CEOs can be fired. It happened to Bill Gates. It happened to Steve Jobs. It has happened to so many different founder-owner CEOs that they were thrown out by these shareholders simply because they were not able to perform. Political leadership, I'm not going to comment too much. We are all experiencing. At the government level, there is a fast turnover of civil servants in many countries. So what is the underlying reason for the success and failure? Would somebody like to give me a quick answer? Let me just try if I succeed using my Q&A approach to running the session. What might be some of the fundamental reasons for the success and the failure of the CEOs? Upsetting shareholders. And how do you upset the shareholders? You reduce the dividend because you do not have adequate knowledge about the expectations of the shareholders. How do the political leaders fail? Political leaders fail when they lose sight on gaining good knowledge about what the people who have voted them into political power are expecting. If you address the failures in different areas, you will find invariably one word keeps appearing in your conversation, and that is poor knowledge is the reason for success and failure of senior leaders. Lack of knowledge is not just the reason for high grades and low grades for young students in the class. It equally applies well to those who are not writing examinations in a formal sense, but have to face examination from their stakeholders, people whom they are responsible to. So we are all having examinations on daily basis, whether we are a student or we are a president of a country or a prime minister or the CEO of a very large company. Nobody can escape examination from the perspective of the expectations of the stakeholders, and that is the reason. And this really establishes the importance of this session in a festival where the underlying theme is knowledge is opportunity. Let's look at what's happening in our society. There was a time, if I draw a very simple model of society, there is a government, there is the corporate world, the companies, and then there is the civil society, people like you and I. There was a time when the three components of the society could trust each other. People were quite happy that the government will give them something. Government will provide them food, shelter, clothing, education, health, roadways, rice, mangoes, good food, everything, life will go on, extremely good welfare system. People could trust the companies, that companies will give high quality products. The civil society was behaving, everybody was paying taxes, everybody was grooming their children, sending them to the school, giving them good values. But look at the situation today. If I take the example of United States, less than 14% Americans trust the Obama administration, the government, the so-called government, the political leadership, the Congress, the Senate, and the civil servants. In UK, the confidence in the so-called government is below 12%. In India, the score will be negative. There are hardly any country in this world where governments enjoy trust, either from the corporate world or of the civil society. Because they're simply not able to give them what they want. Corporate world in UK, lots of food companies were selling horse meat in the name of beef. Because horse meat is 1/3 the price. When the horses get old, they are culled and the meat is processed and sold in the form of processed food to the innocent citizens. That is the level of responsibility that the food companies have exhibited to the world. Can we trust them? Can we trust our food companies? What about civil society? In UK, we have this whole battery of tax lawyers that if you can afford to avoid taxes, you will go to any extent to avoid losses. There are countries where the civil society will not think for a minute and they will destroy the public property. So how do you run a society where the so-called, the triangle of the trust is broken? This is the chaotic world. This is how we understand the notion of the chaotic world. Who would like to be a leader in this kind of a world, where there is very little promise of being able to deliver any value? And is this situation going to improve? Big question marks. Because of the information technology, because of the social media, the power of the established institution is eroding day by day. One single person, Snowden, can pull down the credibility of the US administration by disclosing all the spying that was going on behalf of the US government in different countries. Individuals are becoming equally powerful as were the governments in the past. So, what happens in this kind of a chaotic world for which we have to educate the leaders? There are conflicting interests. For example, in UK, National Health Service faces a big dilemma. The budget is running out. Where should we spend the money? Should we spend money on specialized care like cancer, Alzheimer's disease, or should we take care of common diseases like flu and influenza? You have to allocate the budget. This is called conflicting choice. There are stakeholders, conflicting interest. Government wants, in the UK, government wants to explore natural resources. They want to build more houses. But there is a conflicting interest. The people don't want to cut the forest and clear up the land to build the affordable housing. They don't want the government to crack open the earth and dig for the oil and the gas in their backyards. And this kind of conflict of interest is slowing down so many different projects. If you look at the quality of information that we get today, it is so difficult to find out what is good information and what is bad information. I happened to meet the global CEO, she's an Indian, of PepsiCo. She was in India and I happened to be there, and we had a conference like this, and I asked her that how do you run a global enterprise like Pepsi when there is so much conflicting information? So much chaos in the world. Her answer was very clear. She says, first of all, we don't need to react to the unfolding information as it comes to us on minute-to-minute basis. We must be able to connect dots. Something was said day before yesterday, yesterday, today, and something will be said tomorrow. We must be able to connect these dots and try to find out what is the big picture behind this unfolding, conflicting information. If you start reacting to information which comes to you on instant basis, you will go mad. You will simply not be able to live in this world. So what you need as a sense of knowledgeable leader is the art of drawing a picture out of conflicting information, out of real information as well as artificially created information. And that's one of the lessons that we like to offer to our senior leaders when they come to us. Also in this chaotic world, another phenomena which has happened is that there are small triangles which have evolved over a period of time. The politically powerful people join hands with very wealthy people, and they sort of exploit all the natural resources and make tons and tons of wealth. So in this chaotic world, there is some degree of success enjoyed by a very small minority of people. And if you start looking at the newspapers where there is a lot of positive information about these so-called successful elites, you might begin to feel that my country is a great country to live in, not understanding the fact that as these powerful elites become more successful, the rest of the society becomes poorer and poorer. There are so many countries that I can mention which will fall into this kind of a trap, where those who have privileged information, those who have influence over the policy making, those who have access to the resources, those who have financial resources and natural resources, will tend to be more successful than those who are unconnected to the world of power elite. That's another phenomenon of this chaotic world. And this is the reason for distrust. It can take several generations before societies will be able to reestablish this element of distrust. But let me not be very pessimistic, because being an educationist, it's our responsibility to respond to this kind of a problem situation that we are facing. Let me sound a note of optimism. Look at another aspect of chaos and how companies are solving it. My student, a double PhD, Dr. Vichak, from South, he's the CEO of Southern Group. He runs a mining company. This is an example of a Canadian company operating a mine in Chile, and they have to deal with 127 different stakeholders. From the time where you discover a natural resource like gold or silver or iron ore or aluminum ore, to the time you start the commercial exploitation, it takes about 12 years to satisfy the expectations of all the stakeholders. Let me quickly take you through what this graphic is trying to tell you. This is a simplified version of this graphic. What this is trying to tell you is that there are so many, if you can see the laser, if you come to the left top corner, there is a number called 127. That's the last stakeholder. Stakeholder are the people who would ask questions, will not allow you to push your own business interest. They will ask you hundreds of questions. They will ask you questions about, would you spoil the environment? What is going to be my benefit if you start digging soil in my village? People are going to ask you, would you give us the jobs? There are hundreds of people who are asking these questions in countries, in poor countries or low-income countries, such as Chile and Colombia. Now, in this graphic, what this Canadian company is trying to show is, it's part of their leadership model, that if you look at the right top corner, the red zone, all the boxes that you see are the boxes of those people who are opposing this mining project and will not allow the mining project to take off. If you go to the left bottom corner, the green corner, you find a smaller number of stakeholders who are interested in pushing the project. So what is the role of the leader here? The role of the leader is to spend 17 to 18 hours a day trying to understand, gain knowledge in terms of what are the expectations and how we can meet the expectations of these stakeholders. This is the job of a leader today. The leadership is not just about running a team of people and making some quick decisions which can be implemented. It's becoming so difficult to make choices and implement the decisions. But however, there are smart people. We had an opportunity to train the top management of this company, Canadian company, and they are able to understand. So it's all about gaining the knowledge, and based on the knowledge that you gather about the stakeholders, you create new opportunities for value creation. Let's take another example. And of course, you know that why we have 127 stakeholders here. You can say that these are the knowledgeable people and they know how to exercise their right in the 21st century. One of the best things that has happened in 21st century is that everybody now understand what is their right and they're willing to exercise their right. I mean, that's a very, very positive thing. But it also contributes to the chaos. We are all familiar with these two companies. What happened to them? Nokia lost $40 billion worth of market value. 40 billion will be 40 into 40, about 1,600 billion baht in less than 3 years. It's the world's fastest failure of a corporate company. They were so powerful, they were so successful until they were on the verge of bankruptcy. Then comes Microsoft and they bought it. What happened to BlackBerry? BlackBerry were the pioneers in smartphone. I'm sure most of you had the BlackBerry when you picked up your first smartphone. Today they are struggling to sell that company. Every day they come out in the press and they say, no, we are still in the business. Please don't sell your BlackBerry. Stay as our customer. We are trying to help you. All the rubbish comes out from the CEO. What happened to these two companies? They were the global leaders. They were victim of their success. They failed to gather new knowledge about what the consumer wanted. They simply could not understand that Nokia did not understand that the customers want a smartphone device where they can not only use it as a mobile phone, but also as an internet device, as well as many other features like high quality entertainment. BlackBerry had the same problem, though they pioneered the smartphone, but they simply could not innovate on the small little black machine. So once again we see that the failure of the leadership here is on account of lack of knowledge about the unfolding consumer preferences, which their competitor, Steve Jobs, was very quick in identifying. So keeping in mind the theme of this festival, knowledge is opportunity, we have case of Nokia and BlackBerry, who could not gain sufficient knowledge about the consumers and failed. Here is an example of a company which picked up very high degree of accurate knowledge about what the consumers want. What the consumer wanted was a smartphone which will be an extension of their own personality and their lifestyle. They wanted to live their life through the iPhone, through the iPad. And that's what he delivered. So here is an example of success. And this also tells us a new paradigm. That whether you are a senior leader or a young leader, 21st century success will be based on quickly unlearning what has worked in the past and relearning what is going to be the direction for success in the future. A friend of mine said that the illiterates of 21st century will be the people, are not the people who cannot read, write, and do maths. The illiterates of the 21st century are the people who cannot unlearn the past and who cannot relearn for the future. That's the notion of knowledge. The knowledge becomes obsolete very, very quickly, whether it's in the political domain or in the business domain or in the social domain. We have to continuously strive for new knowledge to be able to deliver new goods and services. Often we have knowledge, but we turn a blind eye. This is the case of JP Morgan Chase. I don't know how many of you have heard about this company. There were two traders who managed to have this company lose about $6 billion because they were placing uncontrollable positions in the market. They were trading on currency and they were trading on derivatives. The CEO of the company knew it perfectly well. He had the knowledge, but he did not have the courage to challenge these rock stars. So often, the failure is not purely in terms of not having the knowledge, but failure happens because you have the knowledge, but you turn a blind eye to what you already know. And why you turn a blind eye to the honest knowledge, which is very damaging to the interest of the company and the shareholders, because you simply don't want to challenge what has been the reason for the success of a company in the past. So, not the fact that you don't have the knowledge is the reason for failure, but also the fact that you have knowledge and you turn a blind eye to the impact of the knowledge can also result into the failure. I can go on and on and on. There are so many examples from different parts of the world that we can contextualize and see a very powerful relationship between the chaotic world, the importance of knowledge, and the success and the failure of the leadership. Let me move on to the second part of my presentation. So, if leaders are going to succeed on the strength of the knowledge, on the foundations of the knowledge that they have, or on the lack of foundations of the knowledge that they don't have, then what is the true nature of leadership? There are more than 4,000 books that have been written on leadership, sold at the airports. On an average, a CEO who travels quite a lot would have read about 40 to 45 books on leadership. Ask them, did you learn anything about leadership? I'm not sure if I can learn leadership from the book. So how do you learn about leadership? How do you develop your sense of leadership? How do you educate the leaders? That was a question that we asked ourselves at Oxford University. Now, in order to develop and educate this leader, we wanted to first of all understand what leadership is all about. If we do not know what is leadership is all about, how can we educate the leaders of the world? Which is going to be the third part of my presentation. So, we talked to hundreds of leaders in my school. Every year there are about 7,000 to 8,000 leaders, senior business leaders, politicians, members of parliaments, prime ministers, military generals, police. They come for education. So we did a lot of research and we tried to ask them some deep questions. Help us to understand what is leadership is all about in the 21st century. We don't want to waste our time, whether it's an art or a science. Are the leaders born or educated? Let's go straight into understanding what leadership is about. Whatever can be based on education, we will do that. The rest, we will forget. So, the leadership. The first aspect of the leadership, being a leader, is understanding the complexity that I talked about in the first part of my presentation and communicating this complexity in a very simple, clear way to your employees so that they can act on it. Most of the time, leaders fail to understand, comprehend this complexity, and they're not able to communicate with great clarity that how this is going to affect our company, what should be our plan, the strategy, the choice, and how it should be implemented. How many people, how many of us can comprehend the complexity and synthesize it and communicate it to our employees in less than 5 minutes? That's the key task of being a great leader in 21st century. Second task. Today, execution, implementation is more important than having a plan. Planning is important. Planning produces a lot of conversations if you allow your employees to speak up. But plan is not success. Plan is not result. It's the execution which creates results. It's the implementation. Are there theories of execution and implementation? Please, honest truth, there are no theories of execution. It's such an emotional issue. And that's where a lot of CEOs fail. They have great plans which might have been done by the McKinseys or the Andersons or Ernst & Young, but they simply fail to execute. And execution is the pathway to success and the results. The third task. Are you continuously able to learn as an organization, as a leader yourself? Are you able to change the mindset of your company? About 9 years back, I was doing a major project for the Ministry of Agriculture and Cooperatives here. And at that time, the Kitchen of the World project, we were doing a global survey. And one of our recommendations was that the food market, the fresh vegetable and fruit market is changing very fast because of technology. The entire value chain, the vertical structure and the horizontal structure of the food industry in Thailand has to undergo a massive change if they want to become the top, amongst the top 5 cuisines of the world. They did that, and fortunately, I'm very happy to say, today, Thai food is counted amongst the top 5 cuisines of the world. You should all feel very proud about it. The exports of the agricultural fruits and vegetables have been growing very, very fast. Because the players, from farmer to the processors, to the food processing companies, everybody was able to relearn and change quickly. The mindsets could change. There were so many training programs which were being done by the government as well as by the corporate world, and that paved the way for the great results that we see today. On this side, what is the outcome that we are looking at? One of the outcomes that we are looking at is that are we able to create value and share value responsibly? If you look at a company like Siam Cement, they do very well. They create value and they share value with their employees. I don't know how many of you have been to UK and have heard about a company called Waitrose. Waitrose, every employee is a shareholder of the company. And they share the profits of the company. That's called sharing the value responsibility. Not that 90% of the profit go into the pocket of the CEO and the top management. They share value with the customers. They share value with the producers. Another outcome that we are looking for is, are you able to deliver sustainable growth? Are you able to, now sustainable here means without hurting the nature, without hurting the people, without hurting your customers, without hurting your employees. Are you able to grow from year to year? I was doing a case study on MK at the time when we were doing this Kitchen of the Word project, and we discovered such fantastic things about this company. It's one of the most growth-oriented company, highly, highly sustainable. So you find more example of responsible leadership here in Thailand as compared to many other parts of the world. And most important, when you act as a leader, either in a political domain or in a business domain, does the society see you as a trusted citizen? Are you working for the society or against the interest of the society? So this gave us the framework for developing a program. And finally, of course, that every leader has to make a difference that counts. This difference may be in terms of raising the standards of their country's development, contributing to economic growth, the social welfare, the maturity of the country as a whole. So that's the kind of template for leadership that we discovered after talking to the senior leaders. And that's a kind of framework that we follow in the flagship program where we educate the top leaders of the world. Now, of course, the boxes are the same, but what you see in the middle is very important. The horizontal arrows tell you that on day-to-day basis, you have to do the so-called leadership dance. The leadership dance is you have to continuously adjust your antenna and understand the complexity of the word, make new choices, implement them in different ways, and keep learning and keep changing all the time to be able to. So the horizontal arrows are telling you what a CEO does on short-term basis. So that's the kind of a long-term task definition. That's the outcome on the basis of medium and long-term. And this is what the CEO does on the short-term basis. So how do we move from here to the third part? Oxford University has been educating leaders for more than 800 years. We have learned certain things, and we like to follow them. They tend to produce some good results. However, I'm not saying that that's the last word on educating the leaders. Things keep changing, and we also change quite a lot. So I'm going to show you some of the interesting things that we do. First of all, we do not teach from the books. We try to bring context and situations from the participants who come to our program. This is called the wisdom of the tribe. The best learning is that learning which is anchored into what people think is their sense of wisdom. Here you can see that there is a Thai participant. She is the Vice President, Mobile Finance of Telephone Organization of Thailand. So this is the first principle, that this is based on the philosophy that if you bring a global class, people from different countries, the best people in the class, everybody who comes to our program is interviewed for about half an hour to 45 minutes. And we are very selective about who's going to be in the class. And that's where the beginning of the education happens. That's a class, a typical class. That's the executive director of Thai Agriculture Cooperative Bank. And that's the philosophy. A global class, because at the senior level of leadership, the issues that you need to learn about each other tend to be very global. Secondly, you just do not have one kind of leaders in the class, but you have corporate leaders, people from civil services, social leaders from education, health, wherever. Wherever you have the best people, they should be present in the class. That's the learning methodology. This is where we start. We start with the class. The education is built around the class. Its diversity, its experience, its expertise, its values, its wisdom. And then we have lots of interactions. This class will meet for about roughly 7 to 8 hours in the class in the room, and then they will meet for another 4 to 5 hours outside the room, and they will keep talking to each other. The philosophy is that Learning takes place through social mediation. Learning does not take place by sitting in an isolated corner and reading books on the screen of the computers or the iPads. It's the conversations. I'm sorry. So that's where the new ideas and innovations and applications are born. And then you take your own moments to reflect, introspect, and make a selection of what you would like to do in your own context. At Oxford, we never tell you, do this. We only show you the way to reach that place. We will never interfere with what we think is the right thing to do. Right? There are two elements which are the central pillars of our education system: debate and personal tutoring. And we feel that advancing knowledge through open debates and strategic conversations and dialogues is the only way to educate the people of the world. Every student has a personal tutor, and that helps us to help them customize their learning. So, just to wrap it up, these are some of the paradigms that we have learned in terms of what the great leaders are going to do in the 21st century. I'm not going to run through these. You're going to get the printed handout of this. Have a look at it. The most important paradigm would be the art of unlearning the past and relearning for the future. So, with that in mind, let's have a series of questions and answers in order to change our beliefs about what is going to work in the 21st century and what is not going to work in the 21st century. And also with the belief that no solution is going to work forever. We need to be very flexible all the time, just as the senior management of OKMD has been in the last 3 days. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
เสียงปรบมือให้กับดร.ลาลิต จอรีด้วยค่ะ ในช่วงนี้นะคะจะเป็นช่วง Q&A session นะคะซึ่งทุกท่านนะคะสามารถที่จะเขียนคำถามไว้ในกระดาษได้ค่ะหรือว่าถ้าต้องการลุกขึ้นถามนะคะเราก็จะมีพนักงานที่จะคอยนำไมโครโฟนไปให้นะคะ So right now is the Q&A session and if you have any questions you'd like to ask Dr. Johri right here you can write the questions on the piece of paper or you can either raise your hand or we'll hand you the microphone so you can talk to him directly. So,
if you don't ask me the questions, I will ask you the questions.
Well, you mentioned at the beginning that the Q&A approach at Oxford, you have to yell and disrupt right away, right?
Absolutely.
It's not something very common here in Thailand, actually. We find it very hard.
Yeah, because you have a very powerful cultural notion of what is called the respect for the Achan. Now, we feel that a functional relationship with a teacher where you are disagreeing with the teacher is a very productive form of education. It's not a sense of disrespect to the teachers.
Okay, and you don't think that's rude to disrupt something?
We love that.
All right, so now you can raise your hand and disrupt. Actually, I have this one question on this paper. The question is, if leaders have five universal goodness, which consists of cleanliness, orderliness, politeness, punctuality, and meditation, the leader can lead successfully, and this world can find peace from individual inner peace. What is your idea on that?
That's a very profound question, and I would need the whole day to answer it. But let me share with you, there are two very good points in your question. I may know your name because we need to understand the names when we start conversations.
Right, my name is Su Xing.
Ms. Su Xing. The last part of your question is very, very powerful. Great leaders, after having conversations with their employees, go into a state of meditation and self-reflection. And that is the time when they try to decide that, look, I've heard all of my employees. I've picked up answers from my competitors. Now is the time for me to focus, reflect, introspect, and decide what is good for me. But most importantly, this is the answer to your second part of the question, the rationale. For a leader, it is very important to be able to answer the why of doing something. If you do not have a strong rationale for doing something, you should never do it. And the rationale must have a bearing with the society. It should not be based on self-interest. So that's a very short, simple answer to a very profound question, Kunling.
Right, thank you. I might need you to stand right here with me. I'm kind of lonely standing back here all by myself. Another question is, Gandhi, one of my spiritual icons, applied nonviolence to free India. Do you think nonviolence leadership can be applied to both the government and the opposition in this chaotic world, especially in Thailand?
Yeah, again, Gandhi did give us the notion of nonviolence, a form of a public protest against tyranny, but it was against the colonial occupiers. It was not against an established institution of my own society. Now, let me connect Gandhi with your first question. Gandhi used to do a lot of meditation, and that's where he used to, he was not a tall man, very short, but he believed in himself. He had the great capacity to create movements around simple ideas based on very deep knowledge of what is good for the society. At that time, it was good for the Indian society that the Brits should leave India. So he coined a movement called Quit India. Every Indian understood these two words. And then he followed the strategy of non-violence. It worked because there was a purpose behind it. The whole society's interest was in it. So I would say, in a more concrete way, to the second question that you asked, that should we follow the non-violent ways to react? I think in a democracy in 21st century, there should be a lot of room for conversations, disagreement, as long as you're willing to come to a point where you should be able to reconcile and implement something which is in the larger interest of the society. You simply cannot leave conflicts unresolved. That's a very dysfunctional, unproductive way of handling the conflicts. Secondly, in 21st century, it is very difficult to find robust solution. And by the way, we have a professor at Oxford. His research has pointed out that human beings are the most destructive genetic material on earth. We are capable of destroying this whole earth, the total humanity, by just pressing a button. There is no other species in the world which is as destructive as the human beings. If we have been genetically created to be the most destructive species on the earth planet, then we owe it to ourselves that we learn the art of resolving conflicts through conversation, through dialogue, whether it is inside the parliament or out on the road. It must happen. And the ultimate choice should be based on the larger interest of the society and not the interest of a selected few.
Another question from the same person. We might not have enough time to answer all the questions, or we can be really quick to be able to answer all the questions. Do you really think that sustainable leadership can be taught if that person comes from a questionable family?
People do change. You remember what happened to Bill Clinton in his second presidency? For all his sexual misdemeanors, he was considered to be a great failure, but he reestablished himself. Today, he's one of the most successful leaders when it comes to addressing social issues. He's become a philanthropist. So human beings, while they are the most destructive species on the Earth planet, also had tremendous capacity to change. So I do not believe that people tend to stay where they are. We are always evolving, and we have choices to make. We can be very destructive, we can be very constructive. It's a choice to be made.
Because if we can change, it will be very boring, actually.
Yeah.
All right, another question is being seen as distrust citizen related to morality for leadership.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there are so many studies which have pointed out that great corporate citizens enjoy tremendous support from the stock market, shareholders, as well as the stakeholders. In fact, the best way to reduce the stakeholder complexity is to be seen as a great corporate citizen of your society. That's the art of leadership. It's only those companies who are not seen as good corporate citizens in terms of the way they destroy the environment, the way they exploit the labor and the managers, the way they treat their customers, who invite maximum amount of chaos and destability in their affairs. So there is a built-in answer in terms of resolving complexity and being a great corporate citizen. Now, do you need to go to a moralist to get answers into being a great citizen? I don't think. Great citizenship comes, once again, by having a very deep knowledge about what is in the interest of the society and crafting your decisions from the larger interest of the society rather than the narrow interest of your deep pockets. So that's the answer to your last question.
Yeah, we actually have 3 more minutes, so maybe one more question
Yeah,
only.
sure.
How would you go about and change the leadership philosophy that is outdated for the chaotic world, but has set a very deep root in a society that is so rich in tradition and values? Where to begin and how to begin?
Let me rehear that question.
How would you go about and change the leadership philosophy that is outdated for the chaotic world?
Yeah. So I think, again, the answer is in terms of, Brian is here. Brian is a senior citizen like me. And he is investing in his education. He's coming to the program that he learned that I'm going to be here. He sent his application. We had a conversation yesterday. He's coming for education at an age at which you will not even dream about. Why is he coming? To educate himself and investing huge amount of money. These are expensive programs. Because he wants to prepare himself for the next 10 years. Is he going to get great tips in terms of do's and don'ts? I don't think Brian, and nor he is looking for. But he will get a way to think and understand the reality of the world. The value of these programs is in the art of helping to train your thought process and your actions. The value of these programs in leadership is not about understanding, do this and don't do that. There are a lot of young people. I would just try to remind that how the education of the leaders take place. I mean, that university has produced quite a few hundred prime ministers, kings, popes, name it, Nobel laureates, about 39 Nobel laureates. The process is very simple. When you arrive in the university at the age of 18, if you go to the classics, which is the philosophy course, you will have a personal tutor, and your personal tutor will give you literature, about 400 pages of literature, and he will say, please go and read and come back after a week, and I'm going to ask you some tough questions. Sir, what are the questions that I should prepare? No, I'm not going to give you any questions. I don't have any questions. You have to come and tell me what questions I should ask you. Now imagine, 18-year-old student, you may be coming from Pitsanulok. You were the brightest Thai in the school system. You qualified for for Oxford University. 1,400 pages of classical philosophy. 7 days, and you're going to face your tutor. And it's going to happen for the rest of your education system. So it's what we call as reflective learning. It's not learning based on listening. It's based on reading and reflecting, and then the art of arguing with your teachers. Is your teacher going to tell you that you are right or wrong? No. Your teacher is only interested in knowing that how good are you as one who can read, assimilate a message, and articulate and argue with somebody who's twice his age. The art of conversation. The second lesson that we give them is never ever agree with your teacher. A contrarian view provides, if you agree with somebody, that's the end of the conversation. The real essence of co-development is continuity of educations. So in that spirit, I hope this conversation will continue as long as you want through email. Of course, we hate emails, but face-to-face is very important. Dr. Vichak did his PhD with me, and often he's a very successful CEO, but I had seen him stressed out because a lot of times our conversation will not go where we wanted them to go. But that's the process of learning. You want to say something? 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes, because we are running out of time. Very quickly, how was your experience of doing the PhD?
Oh, I have to study and learn mostly by myself. Yes, and yes.
That's right. So it's all the kind of contribution that you make yourself. Nobody's going to make any contribution to your life. I mean, your dad can, from a wealthy family, your dad can give you wealth. But wealth is not the ultimate outcome of your life. You can do much more than having wealth. A Ferrari or a BMW. You can make a big difference in the world by educating leaders like Brian and Dr. Vichak.
All right. Thank you so much. Please put your hands together for Dr. Lalit Johri.
I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you very much. Pity that I need to leave this beautiful country, but I keep coming back here. I'll be back here in February to do some work for the company here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And even though we have some of the questions left, but if he doesn't mind, or if he has some spare time after this, the owner of the questions could probably go up to him and maybe have a very brief conversation with Dr. Johri. ตอนนี้นะคะ